saw that the Heathrow Airport operates on EOS.
No,
That's why.
I share that on LinkedIn because as I was waiting for my luggage, I saw they had what it's a scorecard. Like these are
Oh,
our
gotcha. Okay,
goals,
it was you.
and they
Okay.
have, I know. I know. And then my question was, is Heathrow operating on EOS? So I think not having the right structure for your business is key. And as I said, we believe in structure first, people second. Sometimes people set these aspirational core values, like that's how we want, but is that what you really are? If you have the privilege of having a business and employing people, right, that is such a privilege. Building a great company, having a great legacy, that is such a privilege.
Isabel Porzecanski brings over 25 years of experience in operations and human resources within the luxury hospitality industry. She specializes in attracting, retaining, and developing top talent and is certified by Performance Consultants International Workplace Coaching using the GROW method to drive performance and unlock potential. As a professional EOS implementer, Isabel helps companies achieve their business goals through proven tools and processes. Fluent in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, she has worked across Europe, North America, South America, and the Caribbean, consistently delivering results through impactful people strategies. Isabel, welcome to Prospecting on Purpose.
Thank you, Sarah. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy to talk to you today because I have been, obviously, my background's in hospitality, but I've been learning more about EOS. So I'm excited to learn from you on both fronts. Tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, you shared a little bit about it, but I'm originally from Uruguay, and I come from a family of immigrants and entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship has always been in my blood. I started in hospitality. I had my own business. I had a catering business, and then I had a very exciting and fulfilling career in hospitality. 25 years in operations and human resources with Four Seasons and Mandarin Oriental. Last year, I decided to dedicate myself full time to business coaching and found EOS. I had read Traction. We talked about Traction a little bit, and I'm so passionate about bringing clarity to businesses using my corporate background with hospitality from a service perspective, and my HR background to help entrepreneurs and companies achieve their vision through people.
Well, and you know what I really like about your lens of professionalism is that you're coming from Four Season and Mandarin, objectively some of the most luxury brands in the world. But I think one of the things I'm seeing in my business too is that there's a lot of lessons from the luxury hospitality industry that can be applied across any sector. And it's very obvious when a company doesn't have that background or that viewpoint of hospitality because if you're in business to make money, you need customers and there's a hospitality element to it. I think what's so compelling about you is the people element. Like talk a little bit about your background and how you landed in an HR role and your people background.
So I started in operations, and I really think that anybody that's in kind of support roles like marketing or finance or HR should have an operational background if possible, because you just understand the business better and you have more credibility, right? So early on, I was in operations and then transitioned to HR. I always felt I was better suited to make an impact that way through the people, through the employees, the team, the colleagues, the internal customer, as I call it, right? Because if you take care of the employees, they'll take care of the customer. So that hospitality lens from the heart of the house, as we call it, not the front of the house, the heart of the house.
You instead of back of house, the heart of the house. I love it.
Heart of the house, heart of the house. So very passionate about that and building. HR is a business partner. There's no doubt about that, right? So it's not just a support role. We have a seat at the table, and our ability to identify opportunities to execute, profitable businesses through people strategies is key. And EOS uses that really, really well for entrepreneurial businesses. So for me, it was the perfect match.
Okay, so that's how you made that transition then. So it's so funny because before I met you, so Isabel and I are in a cohort together, female founders in hospitality cohort. And before I really met you, Isabel, I had heard of some of the buzzwords around EOS, but I didn't really realize that it was a structured framework. So for folks who are not familiar with EOS, can you give us an introduction to it?
Sure, sure. So I think what we find is companies deal with very common frustrations like lack of control or profitability issues or people frustrations, just this general feeling of like you're hitting the ceiling and nothing's working. And what we do is we help entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial businesses by implementing what you said. It's kind of a complete proven system, simple, practical tools that help entrepreneurial businesses do three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy.
Mm.
So, vision from the perspective of having a clear vision, where are we going and how we're going to get there, right? Everybody wants to know that. Traction is executing on that vision with discipline and accountability. And the third one is healthy, having a healthy, cohesive leadership team to execute that vision with traction. So those three things are what EOS really, really helps with. I find, and we often describe it as a system for managing human energy, right?
Oh,
Because, yes, and because it really gives you a framework for how we communicate, how we make decisions, how we prioritize, how we hold each other accountable. And so EOS, when people say, what is it, right? It's entrepreneurial operating system, they sometimes thinks it's a software. Is it? So
mhm.
it's a framework for managing human energy within your business and achieving your business goals. So in a nutshell, real world, practical, no magic pills, no theory to help entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses.
A framework for managing human energy. I love that. And then vision, traction, and healthy.
That's
Does
right.
and I don't know if this is appropriate, but does healthy also include the financial side of it too?
All of it, all
Okay.
of it. Absolutely. So what we do is we've identified, right, six key components of a business, and the framework helps you get strong in all the six key components. You can't be
Mhm.
strong on the data component if you're not strong on the people component. You can't have a great vision if you don't have traction. You certainly need processes, and you certainly need a framework to solve issues. So all of that, the ultimate goal is to have results, right? To get what you want from your business.
Okay, got it. And that makes a lot of sense. So you had just mentioned 6 components. What are the 6 components? Do they fit inside the like vision, traction, healthy, or is that break that down for us?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the vision is the first key component,
Okay.
right? And traction is another component. And when we have the EOS model, we had vision at the top and traction at the bottom. We often say that vision without traction is hallucination because you can
Mm,
have a great vision, right? Very pretty, sitting in a binder somewhere or posted on a wall somewhere. But if you're not executing on that vision every day, every week, every month, uh, you probably won't be able to achieve your vision. A lot of businesses actually fail because of that. They have a great vision, but they're not the ability to execute with traction. So vision, traction, this, the people component, kind of my sweet spot, right? Having the right people in the right seats, really, really important. Then we have the data component, making decisions based on data, measurable, tangible facts, a scorecard, and not managing your business through emotions or subjective things. Really, really important. Then we have the issues component, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit later. So this ability to just put everything that's in your mind that needs to be solved or addressed or discussed within your business in a bucket that you can address and talk about with your leadership team. Then we have the process component. So, uh, vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. Those are the six key components.
got it. And it makes a lot of sense that vision and traction are, the core pillars. I on this show we talk a lot about taking action is great, but action without execution. I see a lot of people just spin their wheels thinking they're doing the right things, but not having results. And that's a big part of what I teach about from a sales lens of action's great, but if you're not getting dollars out of it, what's the point, And so I like that that's kind of more of a overarching theme to it. I want to ask you too. So it's funny because I had this little realization today. It's almost like in your personal life too, you have these different components like health and family and friends and exercise and financial, like kind of that wheel of life. And if one of those is imbalanced in your personal life too, you feel it. And so it is a lot of intentional effort to have that like well-rounded personal life. There's no reason why a business wouldn't be obviously significantly more complex because it's impacting people's personal lives too.
I love that you say that because a lot of us EOS implementers, which, we're the business coaches that implement EOS, have our own personal VTO, which is our vision traction organizer, which is a 2-page document where we have 8 questions that we basically ask, which is core values, core focus, core target, where are we going, what's our marketing strategy, what's our 3-year picture, what's our 1-year plan, what are our quarterly rocks, and what are the issues that we need to solve. So I have my own personal VTO because it's funny because it's almost like it gives you a sense of freedom to know where you're going and to be in control of what you can control. And there are things that you can control. Sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, and we're spinning our wheels, as you said. But if you just organize yourself and have a clear plan and a clear vision, people like clarity. Like
Mm,
teams want to know where we're going. And I think sometimes visionary types in particular think that everybody can read their mind, and
mm,
you can't, right? You have to be very deliberate, as you said, to explain to people how we're going to get there, what we need to do, who gets to be a part of this journey with us, right?
mm.
What kind of behaviors are accepted and rewarded, so that we can achieve that vision together. So I think it can be very, very inspiring. It can feel like a little bit, oh, but it's very corporate or it's very structured. It's actually very liberating to know exactly where you're going and how you're going to get there.
I think that's great, and I think I also really appreciate the idea of having the vision and the target, and then, like, almost reverse engineering all the different steps and the people to
Yes.
get there. So let's talk a little bit about, I mean, where you had mentioned the word visionary, which I had heard through different podcasts I listened to, just from kind of my own gut, just instinctiveness. But talk a little bit about the people element, if you don't mind, Isabel, because I think this is probably something other people have heard and just didn't realize where it originated from.
Yeah, so let me start with the people component and we'll end on the visionary kind of integrator roles. So the people component has 2 tools or disciplines, and they are right people and in the right seats. So we define right people. A lot of businesses is like, what is right people? Who gets to work here? A players, B players. We
Mm,
define right people as people that share your core values, right? So we define your core values as part of your vision. And when they're in the right seat, what that means is we call it GWC. They get it, they want it, and they have the capacity to do it. And
GWC. They get it, they want
GWC,
it,
get
they
it,
have
want it,
capacity.
capacity.
Love it.
So to build a great business, you need both. You need right people in the right seats, right? So right people share your core values, right seats, they get it, want it, have capacity.
Got
So
it.
that creates magic when you have a business where all your employees are aligned with your values, they behave according to those values, and they get it, want it, and have capacity for their seats. So when we do seats, we do something called an accountability chart,
Okay.
which is not an organizational chart. We don't necessarily use titles, and it's not a hierarchy. We talk about who's accountable for what to generate that clarity we were talking about earlier. So when we do an accountability chart, we usually call out multiple basic functions in the business, but we also call out 2 different roles, which are the role of the visionary and the role of the integrator. And they couldn't be more different. It's kind of a yin and yang, right? What happens is very often you have a founder that's full of ideas, big picture thinker, your visionary, trapped in that integrator seat. And they really struggle because
Mm,
they're not good at driving accountability and daily discipline. No, they're good at big ideas, big relationships, managing, just being the inspire for the organization. So they really need that sidekick, right? That integrator type. And until you're not able to separate and clarify those roles, it's going to be very different and very difficult for the business to succeed because
mhm.
the team below them, right? When you have a visionary, they can drive everybody crazy.
I can
And
see that.
they can because every day they show up, it's like, okay, no, let's do that. No, now let's do this. Stop doing that. Now let's do that. And it can be very challenging for the team to follow and confusing. And that's why you need that role of the integrator to balance that out, to bring clarity and execution and drive daily accountability with the team. So those roles, we really help when we come and implement EOS to define clarity in those key roles for the sake of the business. And we put structure first and people second, right?
Mm.
Because sometimes businesses, they're like, oh, these are the people we want, we have, where do we put them? No, no, what does the business need in terms of structure? And then we put people in seats that get it, want it, and have the capacity to do the job.
Okay, that makes sense too. It's like reverse engineering the people component also.
Right.
I
That's right.
think for I think that that language, the visionary and integrator resonated with me when I first heard it because I definitely am more the visionary type, but then like the processes and all that stuff, I just don't want to do it. And it's just not my zone of genius. And for my own personal business, I do feel that I'm about to hit a ceiling where I may not be able to scale without that role or without those processes. So, I'm a business of one. It's a little different from an EOS model fully, but I think that it gives a lot of clarity because you're allowed to not be good at everything. I think that that's what we
Absolutely.
forget.
Yeah, but your energy should be used on the things that you're really good at,
Right.
right? So when you have to do, and if it's just you, right? If it's a business of just one, at least be clear on when you need to be in visionary mode and when
Mm,
you be in integrator mode, right? So
that's
right
helpful.
now I need to be in integrator mode and I need to have clarity, communication, focus, accountability, just that follow through. And then when you're in visionary mode, you are like ideas, big picture, 30,000 foot, right? Relationship. So when you're ready to scale and grow, that's the first seat you should fill, right? The
Makes
integrator, so that you can be fully visionary.
makes sense. Cool. Okay, I love that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other components because I think one of the when I think about what I know of EOS at this point, it seems like it's a vehicle to keep moving forward, right? It's a vehicle to get the results, get the traction. But it also seems like a nice way to handle problems and issues. And I think that's something that would be really interesting for this audience because everyone in our different roles has different issues that come up, and having a structure for addressing them is very appealing to me. So let's talk a little bit about the issue side.
Yes, I love that. And there's a reason why it's called issues, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing. I want to make that super
Mm,
clear. It's just everything has a place in EOS. Everything has a bucket. That's what makes this system so effective, is that everything belongs in a place and it all works really well together. So issues being one of the six key components are our ability to get really good at solving problems, identifying opportunities, executing on ideas. So we have this two concepts or two tools or disciplines under the issues component. The first one is having an issues list. And a lot of my clients is like, oh, we only have two or three issues. No, I want you to have 10, 20 issues, right? Everything goes in there. Any ideas, opportunities, things we need to share with the team, it all goes on your issues list. It is healthy to have an issues list. We encourage that so that
mm,
we can then discuss it, right? So the second is the second tool or discipline is something we call IDS, is an issue solving track. And we, you and I probably have been in tons of meetings where things are just discussed and discussed and discussed and nothing is solved. The meeting ends. It was one of my frustrations in the corporate world, actually, the meetings before the meetings and then the meetings after the meetings. And we still have not made a decision or solved the issue at the root of the cause, right? At the source. So the first step, so IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. So the first, we spend more time identifying and solving than discussing.
mm,
Identifying the issue, right? You ask why 7 times. We try to get to the root of the issue. And it can be multiple things. It can be a people issue, it can be a training issue, it can be a process issue, it can be any root cause, but we have to spend time asking clarifying questions and really getting to the root of the issue. Once we got to the root of the issue, we discuss it, not repeating ourselves, no politicking, right? And then we move to solve, which is identifying a clear action, back to your point of action, that we're going to do to solve this issue. You can't remove an issue from the issues list unless we have what's called a to do, which is a
mm.
7-day action item. So we just try. We try. Let's try this for 7 days, see if it works. If not, we bring it back to the issues list and we talk about. But the key is that we're driving solutions all the time, trying to identify opportunities to solve this issue at the root and make sure it doesn't happen again.
What's so powerful about that too, Isabel, is I feel like a lot of times you find a problem or an issue and then you just go straight to trying to fix it without understanding what the actual issue is. And I think I don't want to put a sales spin on it, but same when you're talking to a client, they might have an objection and you just answer that first objection, but it's almost never the actual objection. There might be many layers to get to it. So I think just from a good habit standpoint, getting to the root of the real issue. And then I love the idea of trying it for 7 days. And then if that doesn't work, tweak a variable, try it for 7 days. That's so cool.
Yes. I think what makes for good meetings, they're almost like great movies, right? A little bit of drama. So we want a little bit of passion when we're solving issues. We want to, get to that point where we are very passionately discussing and understanding what the root cause is. And again, you can't generalize. It can be multiple things, but we do fall into that trap of let's solve it. How do we fix it? How do we fix it? How do we fix it? And if you're not fixing it, it's probably you haven't identified the root cause.
Right. Because you're trying to just take action without the execution, the traction piece.
That's
Okay,
right.
cool. So then, once let's say that you identify an issue and it's a big issue. How do you I mean, it's something that's really complex that's not, how does the organization navigate some of the bigger issues?
So I love that because that's a great segue into the traction piece, which has two components. And the first one is rocks. So usually, so a rock is a Stephen Covey concept,
Mhm.
and so they're the big important things, right? First things first. These are what must get solved in the next 90 days, critical for the business, right? So we live in the US, what we call a 90-day world, which is we set rocks every 90 days. So it maybe some of these issues, if they take longer to solve or to address, they're not a 7-day to do, they can become a rock, right?
Mhm.
Something that we need to, over a course of 90 days, work on, solve, structure, define, or resolve, right? So every 90 days, we set these rocks, we execute, right, with discipline and accountability. Then after 90 days, we come out for air and we look at our vision and we say, okay, are we still aligned with our vision?
Mhm.
Right? Is this going to get us to our 1-year plan, 3-year picture, 10-year target? Set new rocks and go back and execute with discipline and accountability. So this clarity for the team, I'm going to keep going back to clarity, right? That I know exactly what I need to do for the business to be successful over the next 90 days and not changing priorities every day or having
Yeah.
a visionary show up every day and say, stop doing that, we're doing that. No, 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 no. We said these are our rocks, 3 to
Mhm.
7 rocks, right? Because when everything's important, nothing's important. We want to have just 3 to 7 key priorities, things that must get done this quarter to drive results. So to your point of issues, when we have a big issue, we can turn it into a rock. Um, and then you can develop, little steps or milestones to help you achieve that rock. And you might need other people, but somebody owns that rock. This is another way in which EOS really drives accountability. Everything has an owner.
Which is great. And it's so funny, Isabel, because in my training, we talk about the big rocks too, and from Stephen Covey. And then when I was reading Traction, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's just applied different. So the way that I teach my students or my clients to focus on hitting their sales targets is almost the same thing. It's like, what are the big like projects or clients who are going to get you to your sales goal? And then what are you doing every quarter to nurture that relationship and move that rock forward, because it's very easy to procrastinate. I think that that's just a general, there's so many things on our to-do list. It's really hard, to not get distracted by the next shiny thing or great idea. And having this structure has really helped me over the years. I didn't really realize the origin of where it came from until recently, but it's helped me execute and hold myself accountable, because a lot of what we're all doing, and no matter what we do, we have to be self starters. Because if we procrastinate, all of a sudden it's July and everyone's on vacation and we can't get a hold of anyone and we're off our mark. So I love that there's structure to that and accountability. I think that's super powerful and it makes sense why this works.
Yes, it does. But the thing is, you can't just look at it every 90 days, right? And that's the second component of traction is like you have to look at it every week. And
Mhm.
we've talked about it, our L10 meeting, our level 10 meeting. It's because when we are speaking with possible prospective clients, we ask them to rate from 1 to 10 how effective their meetings are. And we
Mm.
usually hear like a 3 or a 4. Frustrations, which we never solve anything. They're a waste of time. They're meetings that could have been emails. So what we do with this format of meeting, it brings your meetings to a 10. This
Mm.
formula for this 90-minute meeting forces you and gives you a structure to look at your rocks every week, right? To look at your scorecard every week and to spend 60 minutes out of 90 minutes solving issues. That's what makes for great meetings. So you
Mm.
have to look at it every week. Are we making progress every week towards our 90-day rocks? We can't just, wake up on day 89 and say, oh, we didn't complete the rock. We want to make sure that we are every week making progress. So that really drives traction as well.
Well, and that's a great introduction to your role too, Isabel. So what is the role of an EOS facilitator? Like how do you get business and then like what happens after the client onboards you as their facilitator?
Great. So we are called EOS implementers because we're expert on the tools, right? You are an expert on your business. We are not business consultants. We are business coaches because our goal is to build independence. We want to, typically the journey with our client is about 2 years. Because after that, we want them to, it just becomes common language. We want them to be applying EOS within the team. Every new employee that joins learns this language, right? It becomes part of their daily habits. So there's over 800 implementers, right? There's 25,000 companies running on EOS uh,
Wow.
with an implementer. So that gives you an idea, right? EOS has been around for over 16 years, and there's actually over 300,000 companies using the tools, 25,000 using an EOS implementer like myself and my fellow 800 implementers. So we have 3 roles. I love that question because we are a teacher of the tools,
Mhm.
facilitator of the wisdom in the room. The answers as coaches we come from the team, and the last one is to be a coach. Sometimes it's hard when you're inside the jar to read the label, right? So you have this external view that can sometimes give you perspective. So teacher, facilitator, and coach, that's what we do.
Well, and I wonder if it also, I mean, I definitely understand why you would need a facilitator through this because you're using a lot of language and tools that you're mentioning, and it seems incredibly helpful, but keeping organized. I think I definitely understand like why being a teacher of the tools and facilitator of the wisdom. I love that. The coaching piece too. I think that you almost serve as an external accountability to keep people on track too. It's just another way to stay organized and on track with your goals.
We actually want the team to be accountable for each other
Mhm. Makes sense.
because the launch process, we typically meet with a client 5 times a year. We're not trying to build dependency here. We're trying to have the team work together to hold each other accountable. And what the system does, it makes everything transparent. Like you can't hide.
Yeah.
Once you implement EOS, there's nowhere to hide because the numbers are very clear. The roles are very clear. The accountability becomes very obvious. And when you don't have the right person in the right seat, it becomes very, very apparent. So
Mm.
sometimes what happens when we start working with a leadership team, because we only work with a leadership team, is that the team that starts is different than the team that ends. Because throughout
Mm.
that process, people that are not aligned or that are not executing, the system really helps you become very clear on that. So we want the team to be accountable for themselves. We don't necessarily drive accountability. We teach them the tools that drive accountability. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that from a best practices standpoint, I love the 2-year metric. I'm really curious. So now that I have EOS on my radar, it's almost like when you are looking at buying a car and then you see the same car out on the road. Like now that I know about it, I keep running into companies that run on EOS. So would you be able to share some like common companies that people might know that are operating on EOS?
Sure. So our typical clients are entrepreneurial businesses, 10 to 250 employees. that want to get better, get healthier, right? That have a growth mindset, that are more comfortable with change than with the status quo. So, one of the things we say is you don't wait for EOS to get you ready. No, like we can come in at any point, and you don't have to wait for the perfect time to bring EOS. We come in and we help you get ready for whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So, to your point, we want to help you, whatever your goal is. Is it to grow the business, to improve the business, to sell the business,
Mm,
whatever, in terms of a vision to do that. So our clients vary. Out of my clients, a few are hospitality because that's my background, but I have a pharmaceutical company in Central America, for example, that
mm.
nothing to do with hospitality because the system works. It's agnostic, industry agnostic. The common challenges that every business faces is they're the same. So it helps even in big, we have some big corporate clients actually that implement EOS in some area of their businesses, in some of their units of their businesses. So the
Oh,
framework
that makes
works.
sense. Yeah,
Yes,
like there's maybe a business unit within a larger
that's
organization.
right.
I think I saw I did this might be fake news, guys, so don't take my word for it, but I think I saw that the Heathrow Airport operates on EOS.
No,
That's why.
I share that on LinkedIn because as I was waiting for my luggage, I saw they had it's a scorecard. Like these are our
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
goals,
it was
and
you.
they
Okay.
I know, I know. And then my question was, is Heathrow operating on EOS? Because it felt like it was, because they had a very clear scorecard, and they were showing every passenger that goes through Heathrow Airport how they were doing on their metrics. I love
Oh,
the transparency. I love to see what their goals are. And how did they do last semester? I mean, it was fantastic. It was in red or in green. I'm like, they must be running on EOS.
oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, well,
Yeah.
Isabel and I are connected on LinkedIn, so connect with us if you haven't yet. Let me ask you too, Isabel, what is one thing that you wish every business owner would know, even if they don't adopt EOS? Like, where's an area where you see people get stuck?
So I think not having the right structure for your business is key. And as I said, we believe in structure first, people second. So defining what do you need for the business between now and looking forward 12 to 18 months to achieve your business goal. So structure first, people second. Um, and I would say, the right people in the right seats is everything, right? I'm coming from the HR hospitality background. People are what makes your business successful or not, and having a clear framework to define who right people, what is the concept of a right person by using your core values, and then the get it, want it capacity is so helpful, so helpful. So I would say structure, right people in the right seats is everything. And then clarity. You have to be clear. People want clarity. We often talk, you have 5 generations in the workforce today, right? Different generations process information differently. So when you think about every generation, they want to know where they're going. They want purpose. They want to know what's in it for them. They want to know what their efforts are towards. So visionaries sometimes think that it's obvious for everybody, but no, you have to create organizational clarity for the team.
And clarity will help create buy-in from everyone to understand what, like, why are we doing this? I heard a
100%.
quote the other day, I think you would like. It was clarity is kind. Clear is
Yeah,
kind.
that's a Brene Brown
Is it?
quote.
Okay.
Yes, yes, which is being clear is being kind. I believe in that, from the HR perspective as well. And using your core values to guide every decision in your business, right? Sometimes people set these aspirational core values, like that's how we want, but is that who you really are, right? And using them to reward, recognize, make people decisions using core values as your north, right? That's what guides every decision you make as a business. So it's extremely, I would say it's simple, but it's not easy, right?
Yes. You know what's so funny, Isabel? Because in my sales workshops, we start with our personal core values
Mm,
because if you're trying to connect with a client quickly, if you're clear on your core values, it's totally a tool for decision making. Like I love that you use the North Star language because it just helps, are these actions in alignment with my values? But I also think that it really helps connect with the other person, even if you have nothing in common from age, background, role. You can find these connection points if you understand your values. And I think it's something that we don't, as a humanity doesn't always spend a lot of time sitting down and thinking about what their values actually are. And I think that it's so powerful. And now that I've been facilitating in-person workshops from a sales lens, you can just see these light bulbs clicking, and it's really cool. And I did an in-person workshop last week, and we had everyone talk about their values. I threw it up on a whiteboard. We talked a little bit about the difference between values and principles because those are different. And then I put the organizational principles up on the screen, and we married the values to the principles, and you could just feel an energy shift in the room. It was so powerful. Everyone there felt that they were in the right spot, and they were so energized. Like, it was so cool for me to see too. And so I think that it's cool to see how this comes into different areas of the business too. Like, this is something where, like, obviously Isabel's available, and I'll make sure that we ask where we can find you. But reading the books was really powerful. Even if your organization doesn't do EOS, having some of this knowledge and skills is really, I think, going to be a shift for everyone listening.
I agree. And to your point of core values, I want to say something that's, I think sometimes people, we just discover them. They're there.
Mhm.
They're there. It's what built the great company that you have, right? So it's just discovering them. We don't pull them out of thin air. We discover them. And so it's a very powerful exercise, as you said, when we discover core values, and it's like that light bulb goes out and then you use them all the time. You activate them.
And Isabel, I'd love your take on this too, because I think there's different values for the different buckets of life. Like we were talking about at the top of the interview, like the way you
Mhm.
show up as a parent might have some different values than how you show up at work. And so you're allowed to kind of have different buckets of values too, based on where your life is or what area of life you're focusing on.
Yes. Yes, I think it's really good to aim for integration, right? Like to be really true to who you are. Like if you're building a company or you're, raising a family or it's from your own perspective, it's really good to be aligned with what you are and who you are and what you do and how you behave. You can't fake it. Sometimes people are very unhappy because they're working with a company that they're not aligned with their values. And that's always been my advice to my kids, right, that are now in college is find a company that is aligned with your values above anything. So trying to find that right match, right, that right partnership is really important.
Well, and I love this so much too, Isabel, because I feel like you just tied a bow on our whole conversation of this authenticity piece. And I loved your integration language. That was great. Like, knowing who you are is going to make everything else easier. And I think authenticity is this big buzzword, and the top leaders don't always want to hear it. But then when you apply it to a lens like EOS and you see all these successful companies using it and seeing the dollars behind it, I hate to say it that way, but that really, I think, helps the authenticity case, because I don't think people can always tie those dots together. So I really appreciate you saying that.
Of course.
So before I ask where people can find you and connect with you, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to make sure we cover?
I think we covered everything. I want to make sure our goal is to help people run better businesses and live better lives, right? Because sometimes people are afraid of starting a business because it is 24/7, right? But there are better ways of doing this. Our goal is to have a company running without all that friction. So
Mhm.
the tools are free on eosworldwide.com. You can get matched with an implementer on eosworldwide.com, right? As I said, there's 800 of us all over the world. Um, Very passionate. These are people that are incredibly passionate about what they do. I'm more of an integrator type. You're a visionary type. I'm more of an integrator type. So I know exactly that I can bring that structure when I facilitate this, but a lot of our implementers are more visionary types. So
Mhm.
everybody's a little different, brings their own background, their own experience. So finding the right match for you throughout this journey is also very powerful. But yes, I think we covered a lot. And I what I love about what you're doing in terms of prospecting on purpose is this being deliberate, the word purpose, right? Life is short. If you have the privilege of having a business and employing people, right? That is such a privilege. Building
Mhm.
a great company, having a great legacy, that is such a privilege. So to do it right by choice is very powerful.
Yes, thank you for hitting on that because intention is one of my core values actually. But also, we want to be able to give people structure because there's a lot of noise out in the world. So I really appreciate you sharing that. EOSworldwide.com. I'll link it in the show notes. Where can people find you and reach out to you and connect with you?
So there's find an implementer. You can look for me, under Isabel Porzecanski. We all have our microsites with our own stories. They can connect with me on LinkedIn always. Um, and yes, I'm available for any questions. Our goal is just to help people, and as you said, just get more clarity amongst all the noise we have.
Yeah, well, I have had the privilege of knowing Isabel for what, like 4 months, 5 months
Yeah,
now with our
yeah,
cohort, and she's definitely a connector of people. I love your hospitality background too because I think it translates so nicely into so many other areas. And the goal of this show is to really help people just have more of a business umbrella too, so they can pull what works for them. So I will link all of Isabel's links in our show notes. And Isabel, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing the EOS structure with us, the human managing human energy.
you got it. Thank you, Sarah, for having me. Always a pleasure.